On the 1st of October 2002, a $64 billion question walked into a hearing room of the United States Congress. It wore a very good suit. Gary Winnick had founded a company that laid telephone cable across the floor of the Atlantic Ocean. For a moment in 2000, that company was worth $47 billion. It had existed for barely 3 years, and it never earned a single profitable year in its life. Now, it was bankrupt. At the time, the 4th largest bankruptcy in the history of the United States. Shareholders were wiped out. Thousands of employees had watched their retirement accounts, stuffed with company stock they were not allowed to sell, go to zero. Winnick himself was fine. On his way up and on his way out, he had cashed $734 million out of the company. So the congressmen leaned into their microphones and asked, in several different ways, the only question that mattered. Did you know? And then Gary Winnick did something no other executive of that entire scandal-soaked era ever did. He reached, in effect, for his checkbook. To understand what that check was really worth, you have to understand everything that happened first. This is the story of Global Crossing, the company that cooked its books at the bottom of the sea. Gary Winnick was born in 1947 and grew up on Long Island, New York. His father ran a food service equipment business. It failed. That detail matters because everything about Winnick's career reads like a man determined to never be his father. He was not an engineer. He was not a banker's son. He got a degree from a local college and in 1972 talked his way into a Wall Street firm called Burnham & Company as a bond salesman. Inside that firm, something was growing. A junk bond department run by a young trader named Michael Milken. In 1978, Milken moved the operation to Beverly Hills, California, and Winnick went with him. For the next several years, he worked the desk alongside the most dangerous financier in America, selling the bonds that funded corporate raiders and leveraged takeovers, and watching Milken conjure billions out of companies Wall Street would not touch. The lesson of that desk was simple, and Winnick learned it completely. You do not need profits to raise money. You need a story. In 1985, Winnick left and set up his own investment firm, Pacific Capital Group. He got out clean. Drexel Burnham collapsed a few years later, and Milken went to prison. Winnick spent a decade doing deals nobody remembers. Then, in 1996, he heard about a business he knew absolutely nothing about: cables, under the ocean. Here was the situation. The internet was arriving, and the telephone cables under the Atlantic belonged to slow-moving consortiums of national phone companies. If the future was data, someone was going to have to build the pipes. No private company had ever financed its own undersea cable and sold the capacity on the open market. In March 1997, Winnick founded Global Crossing with 3 partners and $35 million in seed money, and hired the ocean cable division of AT&T to do the actual engineering. The first project was called Atlantic Crossing 1, a loop of fiber optic cable nearly 9,000 miles long, running from a beach town on Long Island under the Atlantic to England, to Germany, to the Netherlands, and back. Understand how audacious this was. A brand new company, run by a junk bond salesman, was building infrastructure of the kind normally financed by nations, and the money appeared. Winnick had learned at Drexel exactly where risk-hungry capital lived, and over its short life, his company would raise more than $20 billion. The first cable went live in 1998, and the timing was perfect. Internet traffic was exploding. Global Crossing was suddenly the company that owned the on-ramp to the future, and it kept building over 100,000 miles of fiber touching 4 continents. There was just one problem. and it was buried in the business model. The network was real. The demand at the price Winnick needed was not. In August 1998, Global Crossing went public at $9.50 a share. By April 1999, 8 months later, it traded at $60. Forbes magazine put Winnick on its cover under the headline, "Getting Rich at the Speed of Light," and did the arithmetic. $1 billion of personal net worth in about 18 months. Faster than Rockefeller, faster than Ford, faster than Bill Gates. Roughly $1.8 million a day. Within 2 years, his stake was worth $4.5 billion, and the Los Angeles Business Journal crowned him the richest man in the city. At its peak, this 3-year-old company was valued at $47 billion. It had never once turned an annual profit. And Winnick spent like the money was real. In 2000, he bought Casa Encantada, a 60-room Georgian mansion in Bel Air that had once belonged to Conrad Hilton. He paid $94 million at the time, the most anyone had ever paid for a home in the United States. The company spent the same way. It bought a century-old telephone company, Frontier, for $9.9 billion. It bought a British telecom for over $1.5 billion. When it tried to buy the phone company US West, it got outbid by a rival called Quest. Remember Quest? They will be back. Money like that attracts a court, and Winnick assembled a spectacular one. A former president of the United States, George Bush Sr., flew to Tokyo to give a speech for Global Crossing. His usual fee was about $80,000. Winnick suggested he take it in stock instead. The stock was still private. When the company went public, that speech became worth millions. Terry McAuliffe, the future chairman of the Democratic Party, put in $100,000 early. He walked away with $8.1 million. Both parties, one cable company. In a single 6-month stretch of 1999, Global Crossing paid one Washington lobbyist $2.5 million. Executives got the same treatment. Winnick ran through chief executives like seasons. One of them, Robert Annunziata, lasted 13 months. His contract gave him a $10 million signing bonus in cash, 2 million stock options priced $10 below the market, and a brand new Mercedes. It also guaranteed, in writing, first-class airfare to Los Angeles every month for his mother. None of this is illegal. Almost nothing in this story is illegal, and that is the point of this story. But hold on to the picture. A company that had never made a profit, spraying money at presidents, party chairmen, lobbyists, and executives' mothers, while its founder collected the most expensive house in America. The bill for all of it was coming due. And to keep the bill away, the books were about to get creative. Global Crossing sold capacity. The product was called an indefeasible right of use, basically a long-term lease on a slice of the network. Big contracts paid up front. For a while, genuine customers bought plenty of them. But by 2000, everyone had copied Winnick. Rival companies had laid their own fiber across the same oceans. Supply exploded past demand, and the price of capacity started falling through the floor. Real customers got scarce. So a new kind of deal appeared. Global Crossing would sell, say, 100 million of capacity to a rival carrier, and in the same quarter, sometimes in the same breath, it would buy roughly $100 million of capacity back from that same carrier. Cash went out, cash came in, nothing much actually changed. But in the numbers, Global Crossing showed Wall Street. That deal could appear as revenue. Growth conjured out of a handshake. They called them capacity swaps. In the first half of 2001 alone, deals like these stood behind $720 million of the cash revenue Global Crossing reported. One single transaction with a carrier called 360 Networks put $150 million on the books. A congressman would later describe how these deals were really made. Oral agreements, in his words, the winks and the nods. Inside the company, one man said out loud what this was. Roy Olofsson, Vice President of Finance, a numbers man, recently back at work after fighting lung cancer, who listened to the company tell analysts there were no swaps in the quarter and knew it was not true. His verdict on swapping capacity for capacity was the plainest sentence anyone ever produced in this entire affair. Trading a blue truck for a red truck, he said, it should not boost a company's revenue. On the 6th of August 2001, Olofsson put his concerns in a letter to the company's ethics officer. The response was instructive. Global Crossing fired him, and Winnick, he testified, stood up in front of the office and called him an extortionist. Here is what the insiders could see from the top floor in 2001. Capacity prices collapsing. $1 billion loss in 2000. $12 billion of debt, eating $600 million a year in interest alone. The Frontier Phone Company, bought for $9.9 billion, sold off again for $365 billion. A fire sale in slow motion. And here is what Gary Winnick did in May 2001. He sold 10 million of his own shares. For $123 million, his lawyers signed off on it. His chief executive signed off on it. It was, by the committee's count, the last slice of $734 million in stock he turned into cash while the company slid toward the rocks. The employees had no such exit. Global Crossing matched their 401k retirement contributions in company stock, and that stock was locked. By the rules of the plan, they could not sell it for 5 years. They watched the collapse in real time, holding shares they were forbidden to let go of. In the last quarter of 2001, Global Crossing lost $3.4 billion on revenue of $793 million. Read that again. It lost more than 4 times what it earned. On the 28th of January 2002, 8 weeks after Enron, Global Crossing filed for bankruptcy. It listed $22.4 billion in assets against $12.4 billion in debts. At the time, it was the 4th largest bankruptcy in American history and the largest ever by a telecom company. The shares, $60 at the peak, were worth about 30 cents. Then, for the original shareholders, nothing at all. Which brings us back to that hearing room, October 2002. The House subcommittee had spent months pulling documents out of Global Crossing and Quest, the rival that had outbid Winnick for US West. The two companies, it turned out, had been swapping capacity with each other. The chairman of the subcommittee put the question plainly. Were these deals real business, or were they, quote, merely designed to provide the appearance of expanding business and growing revenues? Roy Olofsson told his story, the blue truck and the red truck, the letter, the firing. Then came Winnick, under oath. He denied fraud. He denied insider trading. He denied essentially knowing. The man who built the company, chaired the board, and sold $750 million of its stock, told Congress he had no inkling of the deterioration until after his last big sale. And then he made his move. Unscripted to the visible surprise of his own lawyers, Winnick announced he would personally give $25 million to the employees who had lost their retirement savings. I make a commitment, he said, to every employee of Global Crossing who contributed to the 401k plan. Not one other executive of that era, not at Enron, not at WorldCom, not at Quest, ever stood up and offered their own money back. As theater, it was magnificent. As arithmetic, it was something else. $25 million from a man who had taken out 734. So, what did the United States justice system do with all of this? The federal prosecutors in Los Angeles looked at Global Crossing and quietly dropped their criminal case. Nobody from Global Crossing went to prison. Nobody was even indicted. The Securities and Exchange Commission investigated for almost 3 years. Its staff prepared a modest settlement for Winnick to sign, a payment of $1 million without even an admission of guilt. In December 2004, the commissioners deadlocked on whether to demand even that, and the chairman, William Donaldson, cast the deciding vote in Winnick's favor. The settlement was dropped. Gary Winnick was never charged with anything at all. In 2005, the SEC did act against 3 of his executives. The chief executive, the chief financial officer, and the head of finance each paid a civil penalty for failing to properly disclose the swaps in 2 quarterly reports. Not fraud, a disclosure violation. The fine was $100,000 each. For men of their wealth, a parking ticket. The only real money came from the civil courts, where shareholders and employees sued. The case settled for roughly $325 million, and Winnick personally contributed $55 million of it, including that famous $25 million pledge. Measured against $734 million, he kept more than $9 of every 10. Roy Olafson, the man who wrote the letter, lost his job and his lawsuit. The whistle he blew changed nothing in time to matter. There is one last number, and it is the cruelest in the whole story. When Global Crossing came out of bankruptcy in December 2003, a Singapore company called ST Telemedia bought control of it. 61.5% of the network that had been valued at $47 billion, the cables, the customers, all of it, for $250 million. Roughly half of 1% of the peak price. 8 years later, the whole company sold again for about $3 billion, and its fiber still runs today. There is a decent chance this video crossed an ocean on it, because that is the paradox of Global Crossing. The thing itself was real. The cables work. The internet you are using was genuinely, physically built in that mania, by that money. What was imaginary was the price and the revenue and the story that a company losing billions was worth more than Ford. Gary Winnick understood the difference between the thing and the story better than anyone alive. He sold the story for $734 million and let everyone else own the thing. He kept the mansion. He kept most of the money. He gave $25 million back, collected his headlines, and spent the next 20 years as a philanthropist. He died in that house in November 2023 at 76, a billionaire. The SEC called what happened at Global Crossing a failure to disclose. Fortune magazine called Winnick the emperor of greed. The employees who lost everything mostly called it something you cannot say on television. The books were cooked, the ocean was real, and no one in the end was guilty of anything. This has been Cooked Books. If you want more forensic files like this one, the archive is open.